Have you ever wondered why is it so difficult to make complex decisions right? Or even the fact that we keep on making the same mistakes over and over again? The chances are you are suffering from lack of model-based system engineering implemented. Today we're going to talk about it. Welcome and let's go. Hi, I'm Dr. PK and welcome to my channel, MoloMolo Tech. And today we've got a very interesting take. We're going to be reviewing a book called MBSE for Dummies. That is the second edition of this book. It has been written by Siemens, and I came across this book not for the first time. This is the second time, but this time around I decided, you know what, let me go through it and let me give my opinion on what I understand this book is trying to achieve, but also the specific trends that are so important for those who are interested in having a digital transformation in their business and in their professional way of working. So, what is the book about? MBSE for Dummies essentially is an introduction to model-based system engineering. What is model-based system engineering, you say? It stands for, very simple, it is system engineering, which is the discipline of being able to holistically understand, study, and develop systems from various different angles, both from a business and from a development technical perspective, is translated into models. It's translated into things that can be simulated before they need to be built. It can be validated before it can be integrated or tested. So model-based is trying to bring about a different way of doing traditional engineering, which is trying to ensure that we leverage the tools that we have, cloud computing, simulation tools, analytical tools, before we actually do the costly work, which is the building and the testing and the validating of hardware and actual deployed software in the face of the customer. So it's a tool that tries to leverage the things that we already have. So model-based system engineering is here to stay, but also model-based engineering is the only way for engineering firms and digital firms that wants to bring and leverage the future of technology, which is digital models. In my view, this book is incredible because it looks into giving the very meat and the very essence of what model-based system engineering should be and how it should be adopted, but also gives very poignant examples of when the lack of model-based system engineering is super obvious. So let me take a bit of an example out of the book without exploring it into detail. I'll leave it up to you to read, but this is really a summary and my take on specific things. So model-based system engineering in this book is translated into a discipline. It's translated into a means of collaboration. Why is that? Because the one thing that models things that are on your computer, the one thing that they're very good at is they're good at being shared. They can be shared, which means it creates an undertone of collaboration. You no longer have to pull a document out of a specific repository, or you have to ask someone to email you a document and that the version that he emailed you is no longer current because he himself didn't have the current version, and everybody is completely asynchronous and disconnected. Models are able to have single source. What does that mean? It means that you're able to have at the back end of that model code or specific files that are single source, that are the source, that ensures that all stakeholders work from the same revision, the latest revision, and are always in sync. That's potentially the biggest problems in a lot of companies that tries to build highly complex and highly integrated systems and have a lot of subsystems oftentimes designed by subcontractors or designed by suppliers or even different teams that are oftentimes not in the same location geographically. So model-based system engineering is a way of collaborating. It's an ethos, it's a culture change. And it's very important for all of us to understand that it's not just a tool. It's something that I've come to realize that model-based system engineering is something that brings change in our mindset, in the things, the way we think, in the way we look at life. Is we see products oftentimes as a single event, but oftentimes model-based system engineering tells us it is a continuous event. It is something that is well integrated within not only its conception, but also its deployment and eventually phasing out into discard of that product. So when you think about such a lifespan, which is sometimes a bit presumptuous to think about that you can have a good understanding of what a product would be like when it's conceived, and it indeed you can take into account what it will need for it to be disposed in its end of life. But that's the point. The point is for you to attempt. The point is for you to have a framework for you to go back and look into it 5 years from now, 10 years from now, and say, does this product really achieve the very need of the customer that has now changed 10 years from now, and can my framework adapt to it? That is model-based system engineering. It's basically saying, I don't know the truth, but I do know that I need a framework to ingest whatever that truth will be in whatever time frame that I will need this truth to change. So when you think about it from a parenting perspective, it's basically saying you as a parent and the child being the product, you're essentially saying, I need to adapt, right? When my child is 5, I need to be this type of parent. And when my child is 18, I most probably need to be this type of parent. Now, we adapt in a way, good or bad, as we go. But the framework is our mind, us keeping ahead of the curve, right? Us understanding what the children of this day and age need. What will a teenage person need? Of course, we have a frame of reference because we were once teenagers. So the framework is there, and model-based system engineering is a way of bringing common sense into digital models, into things that are indeed created for us to use for the long term. Now, let's try and really bring something that the book also tries to bring, which is the siloed mentality. Siloed or siloed, however you want to say it, is the mentality that oftentimes is not always well understood. What is a silo? A silo is essentially a standalone unit. But it's a good thing and a bad thing. It's not always a bad thing. So the good thing about a siloed environment or a siloed department is potentially a department that is actually working, right? Within its boundary, it actually is working. Everybody is well integrated. Everybody knows what they need to be doing within the department. In actual fact, people are really good friends and they really want to work well and, in a way, kind of protect their way of working, and whatever that might be, whether it might be flight control department or aerodynamics department or structures or sensors, whatever the case may be, it's actually a good thing. You want people to feel that they're part of a community. However, what you don't want is you don't want them to now make that community a hindrance towards integrating and making sure that the other departments are well integrated with them in terms of interface, in terms of way of working, in terms of what is needed from a company perspective and what is needed from a customer's perspective. Now, unfortunately, in my experience, once a siloed department happens, not only is not the only department, but by definition, there's more than one, and by definition, it's now a trend. Once one has happened or one has been declared a silo, it's by definition not the only one, and by definition also, it is now a trend. Now, why is that the case? Because it's contagious, because it's something that you do want. You want people to feel that they're in an environment where they are welcomed. However, that is not the total truth about what a business needs. A business, on the other hand, also needs to make a product that is integrated. Not every department will give out a product on its own. In actual fact, that's not the point of a department. The point of the department is to add a competence that is needed to make an integrated product. So at the end of the day, there is something missing. And in this book, it's saying what's missing is MBSE, model-based system engineering, the mindset that not only changes the way we think, but provides a framework for us to break down those silos without sacrificing the need for team, without sacrificing the need for experts or competence that's required in the department. For me, that is the biggest uptake on this book. Now, the other thing that I believe a book like this really will bring, if you were to take time to read it, is the fact that oftentimes we forget what it means to have a career path that is within the product portfolio that you have within the company. What do I mean? Is oftentimes we get to a point where we feel stagnant in our careers. We feel that we have no clear path going forward. We don't really feel a sense of belonging in terms of understanding where the business is going vis-a-vis where I want to go. And 9 times out of 10, it's got a lot to do with lack of communication. It's got a lot to do with lack of understanding where the business is actually going, and in terms of you trusting that that's indeed the case. Now, model-based system engineering is an amazing tool because what it actually does, you no longer have specific corridor talk. Of course, corridor talk will always be there, but because you have a single source of truth, your ability, given that whether you have access to that information or not, but your ability to trust that the company uses a single source of truth to make all its decisions, all of a sudden, provided that decisions are made in the right way, you know it comes from the right place. And all of a sudden, your decision making regarding whether you feel the company is going in the right direction and whether your values are aligned with it is no longer speculation. It's no longer whether I'm wondering about what the guy next door is doing versus the guy next door. Of course, people are different. People have their different values and different timelines. But there is no longer speculation. It's no longer an opinion. It's now based on a singular source of truth that not only guides your technical output, but guides your process and the monitoring processes that judges its effectiveness, both from a development perspective and also from an operation perspective. All of a sudden, we're talking facts. We're talking data. We're talking collecting of data. We're talking plotting of data. We're talking how effective is a team, how effective is program management versus system design. All of a sudden, it's no longer an opinion. And because of that, people trust that more and people feel that they belong and they can add value and find a means to add value to that source of truth. For me, it's a game changer because in my 17 plus years of experience, you've always were left with something empty. You were always left with not knowing. You're not sure. The transparency is there, but it's not really there. Mainly because people are working with different versions of the truth. And because of that, you know that that version might potentially be biased. So that is the 2 main points that I wanted to give to everyone today on. Please grab the book. I will leave a link in the description below. MBSE for Dummies. MBSE is an incredible tool. At MoloMolo Tech, we basically swear by MBSE in all our workflow development, in our internal development. We do all our training based on MBSE. All our interns do MBSE training, and even some of our sales and marketing teams started learning a bit more about MBSE. We believe that's the future. We know that is the only way to integrate, that's the only way to empower, and also that's the only way to produce designs that are truly integrated and takes into account both the end and the beginning of a specific product. I'm Dr. PK. Thank you so much for watching. If this video definitely gave you something to think about, don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel, and hopefully you'll get notified with more of these type of videos. Until next time, ciao.